this kicked off. First, I want to say thanks everybody for being here. I know it's the last panel on the two-day conference, so I appreciate everybody sticking around and being involved. Everyone in this room is driving the industry forward, so thank you for that. I'm Peyton Pipes. I'm an attorney and partner at Koon Pipes, PLLC. We're a law firm in Boca Raton. I specialize in cannabis. I'd say it's 99.9% of my practice, and I'll have a little friendly favor every now and then. So I'm very in the industry, pretty much only in Florida. And I have gone up to New York, New Jersey, and dabbled there, but I'm primarily all Florida. I'm going to save myself the potential embarrassment of butchering something, and I'm going to allow the panelists to introduce themselves and give them their own background. So we'll start with Dustin.
Sure, Dustin Robinson. Wear a few hats in the industry. I have my law firm, Lumalex Law. We represent hundreds of cannabis companies across the country. Also have a venture fund called Eater Investments. We invest in early stage companies. Then also have Mr. Cannabis Law, which is our non-legal consulting firm.
That's it?
That's it.
That's a lot. Have to follow that.
There's more.
Of course. Hi, my name is Masha T, and I represent ACS Laboratory. I've been with them for 5 years. We are an ISO accredited, DA licensed, CLIA licensed testing laboratory in Tampa. I do everything. I'm kind of like a Swiss Army knife there. I have a title, I think it's corporate growth and education, that I just made it up because I really just do a little bit of everything. So we don't do any marketing at the lab, where it's more about education, blogging, talking about different things that are interesting to makers, and kind of the bridge between the science and the patient or the consumer. I also I just started High Frequency Pets, which is going to be a pet platform. One of the pets is here. A pet platform connecting people. It's more so you can get more out of your pets. And then, of course, it will include like CBD products and things like that later for pets. And Canafamilia, so I have a trademark on Canafamilia and Canafamilia Shop, which once 3 passes, will be a whole move to for bilingual education, because there's no Spanish content right now. So I don't speak Spanish, but I just thought it would be a good idea. Many more people do, so I do that, and yeah, that's it for now. Thank you.
I think she beat me out there.
My name's Oliver Kruz. I'm the CEO of Tikun Olam. Tikun Olam was started in Israel in 2005. It was actually awarded the world's first license issued by a state government to sell cannabis. And since 2005, Tikun Olam has performed over 12 clinical trials using our proprietary strains, published over 30 clinical white papers and studies. And the Tikun brand and branded products can be found all across the world, including Europe, Canada, Israel, obviously. And in the United States, you can find us with Planet 13, formerly known as VitaCan here in Florida, across 28 of our partner retail locations.
All right, I'm Tony Verzura, founder of Blue River. I would say I've been a patient, caregiver, activist, and innovator for almost 30 years in the space. Helped different types of movements on the product side, I would say, in the industry over the past 30 years, mostly from 2009 on forward. Did help patent the use of active and non-active cannabinoids in MCT oil. 2014, worked with tens of thousands of patients, medical markets across the United States and in the adult use. The company has won 62 cannabis awards for different innovations and products, but we've gone from maybe a legacy brand, if you will, to a Canatech. It would probably be the best way to describe it. Today, we do help impact a lot of patients. Some of you know the brand Blue River. I'm originally from Hollywood, Florida. So I had to run away from this state, thank you, early on. So if I've been doing this a while, you can understand why this was important for me. But being able to take what I've learned in that journey and then implement that at a scale through Truly 5 years ago has helped me be able to get a lot of this experience and technology and different cannabinoids out into the market to help people. That's where my heart's always been at, is as a patient as well. So we also have 2 adult use retails in Boston. So the brand has evolved now into a adult use type of brand. So we have a lot of different data, a lot of different innovation and products. The store is a solventless only store. So that means it only sells rosin, extracts, and vape. No distillate, no artificial flavor additives. Edibles are the same, and infused pre-rolls. Seen a lot of different product development over the years, and hopefully it could help add to the panel and what could be coming up.
Thank you all for that. Great intros. So I'm going to give just the audience a little bit of an overview of what we're going to discuss here today. So we have 4 topics. The first is going to be Florida's 22 new MMTC licenses. I'm sure there's a lot of excitement for that. New opportunities across the country, the hemp-derived cannabinoid market, and science, research, and technology is a driver of innovation. So I like to give the full overview so you're not wondering where your question is coming in down the road. I'm sure some people are actually very excited on this panel about this one. So Dustin, let's start with you. I think you have a good amount of knowledge on this topic. Florida's new licenses. What's the status of it? When do we expect them to be released? Why have they not been released? What's going on there?
Yeah, I wish I had the answer on when they're being released. No one really knows. Back in December 2023, everyone was saying it's going to be January 2024. January was going to be March. March was going to be June. Now we're sitting here and everyone's saying, all right, well, probably when the ballot initiative happens in November, they will announce the winner. So we're hoping that's the case, but I'm kind of getting sick of guessing. So I really don't know is the answer as far as when they're going to be announced. This round was in April 2023. We submitted our own application. I would say most applicants probably spent anywhere between $600,000 to $1 million. Just the application fee to the state was over $150,000. So a very expensive application. So you have people who have been waiting over 18 months now. And so the next step really, when they announce the winners, that's called the Notice of Intent to Award. What's important to understand is that's not the actual notice of award, so you still don't have a license, that's just announcing the winners. Hopefully that will occur in November, although we don't know. And then after that, what's going to happen is there will be litigation. We already know that. It's pretty much absolutely certain there will be litigation. And that's where things could really get delayed. So I know people are frustrated today that they haven't even announced the winners yet, but then once they announce the winners, there's probably going to be another year or 2 of delay. I think hopefully what will happen and what's happened in the past is during that litigation, potentially there will maybe be a statute passed that maybe awards those licenses while the litigation is pending. That would be ideal so that the people who at least ranked in the top 22 could get their licenses. There's no guarantee on that either, but if all goes according to plan, hopefully November, the ballot initiative passes, they announce the new 22 winners, there probably will be some sort of emergency session or special session to pass a statute pursuant to the new amendment. Hopefully during that session, maybe they'll announce that the 22 applicants that were announced as the winners will actually be awarded their licenses. And from there, the 22 applicants will need to get up and running and be compliant with the statute. So it's been a very frustrating process. We actually have an association that was started to kind of represent the applicants and give us a voice just to the extent any of you were involved in the April 2023 round and kind of want to have a voice, feel free to reach out. I'll get you in contact with the people at the association so you can get involved. But I think it's also an exciting time for the industry. Because right now we had 22 licenses. There was a few Pigford applicants that were awarded licenses. Once these 22 come online, we'll have around 44, 45 licenses in total. And so we're going to start seeing a much more competitive market. If recreational actually passes, we're going to need those extra licenses because there's going to be an exponential increase in demand. The state currently doesn't have enough canopy to supply what the demand is going to be for recreational. So we really do need these licenses to be issued, and we really do need people to start scaling their operations and scaling them very quickly so that we can meet the demand.
And so I have a follow-up from that. I think we have a lot of people who come to our office or to call us, and they think that once if they are in that group of 74, 75, they think that they're going to win and then be growing weed the next month. Could you give us sort of a breakdown? What does it look like on, even if you do win, I think there are some misunderstandings in Florida as to what it actually takes beyond winning the license and then actually getting marijuana sold in stores. Could you explain a little bit of, the hurdles that are jumped through immediately after in Florida? Because I think that's a big misunderstanding in Florida, is that you win the license and then you go and you're good. And there's a pretty long time span between getting your license and actually doing sales. There's hoops to jump, and if you could elaborate on that.
Yeah, I mean, I run an investment fund, and you often get financial projections, and most of the time they're not accurate, right? So it's the same thing with kind of getting your cultivation up, or if you're renovating a house, you kind of have these expectations and these plans, but usually it ends up taking longer and ends up being way more expensive than you planned for. So, there are certain time frames that you need to meet in the statute. You need to get cultivation authorization within a certain amount of days, processing authorization, dispensing authorization within a certain amount of days. But realistically, the big challenge in Florida is that the licenses are vertically integrated, so you can only sell the product that you produce. And so the most important thing, I think, in getting things going is making sure you have your production really nailed down before you start opening up a bunch of stores. But you also want to time opening up your stores so that you don't have a bunch of inventory building up and getting bad and without any distribution. So, that takes quite a bit of time. I mean, just a grow cycle might be 6 to 8 weeks, right? So when you talk about building up inventory so that you could actually fill up a store without running out of product, just the growth cycle, forgetting about the build out, the infrastructure, hiring the people, that takes quite a bit of time. So realistically, I mean, you're probably not going to be selling product, depending on like how well capitalized you are and how ready you are. It's going to be very hard to be selling product, within 12 months. My application, we own a farm that's currently actually operating under someone else's license. So we have a fully operational farm under our license. So theoretically, we should be able to get up and running faster than most others. But even with that, realistically, we're going to have to bring in a new team, new employees, put in our own POS systems, our own tracking systems, the IT infrastructure, the physical infrastructure. So realistically, I don't think we'll be selling at scale for at least 12 months. Well, we might be able to deliver some product, and we'll be able to get our dispensing authorization within the time frame, within just a few months. But realistically, doing it at scale, filling up shelves at a retail store, and turning over that inventory, I would say you're looking at 12 to 18 months on the low end.
All right, I've got one more question. We'll move on from these Florida licenses. Everyone's obviously with looming rec. There's the obvious pros, right, of these licenses could potentially have the access to rec sales. Are there any cons or issues or overlap regarding this transition to rec and these 22 licenses that you're aware of? Is that why they're potentially being delayed? Because it seems like at this point, and this is not legal or professional advice at all, this is a personal opinion. It seems like the state may almost be taking a stance of why create a bigger mess prior to the cleanup, right? So it seems like almost the intent from my perspective seems to be like, why are we going to release more licenses prior to the full reg change and transition to rec? So, is that a concern that the license holders are having, is that this may not get sorted out until rec is sorted out? Because I think that there's two issues now instead of one. Obviously your issue has been standing for the last year, but now since all of this election and everything else has picked up, it seems that there's kind of two separate issues that might be overlapping.
Yeah, so I think first off, I think one of the reasons DeSantis doesn't want to issue or announce the winners of the license right now is because he doesn't want to create 22 additional parties that could potentially contribute to the campaign. Right, so if they announce the 22 winners today, those parties might be contributing to the campaign and getting more people out to vote. DeSantis doesn't want this to pass, right? So I think that's one of the reasons for the delay. But the other thing that's kind of important to note, and I hesitate to talk about it too much because I think maybe it gets overstated and a lot of people don't realize it, but 381.986, which is the statute that our medical program is under, it actually has you could call like a poison pill in the enacting provision that says if there's an amendment to the Constitution, then 6 months from the effective date, 381.986 no longer exists. So essentially, if the amendment passes in November, its effective date is in 6 months, which would be May. 6 months from May, 381.986 is no longer an active statute. So there is like a theory out there that if this amendment passes, potentially they may say that this whole application round is invalidated because that application was pursuant to the rules, and the rules were pursuant to 381.986, the statute, and therefore the application system all goes away. So I think that's a very unlikely result, so I don't want to kind of like overstate that, and that enacting provision is like a footnote, so there's kind of a legal argument whether it's even like enforceable. More likely what will happen is that the amendment will pass, and then they'll go out and actually they'll have a special session and pass some other laws that either kind of reinstate 381.986 with some amendments for recreational, or they'll just create a fully new program under a new statute for both medical and recreational. So that's kind of my prediction, but you really never know what happens in the state of Florida.
All right.
I just want to add one thing to that. I mean, I think that the consumers deserve more choice in this market. I mean, it's a huge market by population. It's the third most populous state in the United States. And the fact that we have less than 24 vertically integrated operators servicing, nearly 1 million patients, soon to perhaps be, 20 million or more than 20 million residents who can legally buy cannabis. I mean, having this oligopoly as our structure here in Florida is just not fair to the people who deserve, frankly, fair access to this medicine, or just for recreational enjoyment. So I think a lot of operators might be nervous about the incoming additional licenses, or what recreational use will look like here. But ultimately, I think it's a great thing for the consumers, and it's a vital step toward normalizing this industry.
Agreed. So I think we're going to leave off on the 22 licenses. I think we've covered what's available as far as the information. Obviously, a lot of what's out there on the 22 pending licenses is still in the air or out for debate. So we're going to move on to new opportunities across the country. I'm going to open this up generally to the entire panel. Are there any states out there that excite you, recreational, medical, otherwise? Are there any states out there that have pending applications or licenses up in the air right now that you're excited about? That you think are maybe drafted correctly or that will be rolled out correctly? Are there any out there that are kind of in the eye?
Yeah, I mean, the main state right now that has an open application is New Jersey. I think my firm has done like 60 applications in New Jersey. New York just closed out around, so New York and New Jersey are obviously highly populated states, so I think there's a lot of interest there. But the application rounds have been an absolute mess out there, so I wouldn't necessarily say they're a good example for how things should be rolled out. Quite frankly, I don't think any state has done it right. Every state, there's been litigation, there's been delays, it's been, a bunch of headaches for everyone involved, whether you're talking about Virginia, New York, New Jersey, Florida, like we just discussed. So I think anyone looking to apply for a license, we always caution all of our clients, and we even put it in our engagement letter, the regulations are highly uncertain and there's a lot of speculation, and we might, have delays and other things, we can't guarantee anything, because the reality is the states are all kind of a mess, especially in New York. New York right now, things are getting delayed tremendously, and we've got a lot of applicants right now very, very upset.
I think I'll add something to that. This is my kind of 2 cents of how to find the sleeper states or how to find the ones you could work in. Ohio's probably the next really good market, and New Jersey. But if we looked at the map as a grid, there's certain parameters that will help you navigate where you should go. And so the first thing you need to look at is the Constitution of how they wrote their laws. Like in Colorado or Massachusetts, they changed their constitutional laws to basically rid 280E at a state level. So whatever policy is possible, whatever regulation is there, you have to look at, is this a regulated, limited market? What is the banking laws? What does the tax laws look like? And then is it, when it's limited license, on the commercialization side, Is there medical only, going to be rec, and is there a caregiver model? So I've been in all of the different markets, and I can tell you the ones that kind of really thrive is that hybrid model. In Massachusetts, you can be a caregiver, you can grow your own, you can't commercialize, but you can grow. You can grow monsters in your backyard if you wanted to. They don't really care. So there's that market, and if you're and you need to have then the medical market should be strong in the states, and those are run by, if we're looking at demographics. So high population areas that haven't had access to, say, even medical or adult use, but have the right laws. Like if you're looking at a state and you're like, okay, they've changed their constitution, they have better tax laws, they actually have laws set up for banking, which is why Massachusetts was like a very good spot for that. They changed all those laws. There's cannabis banking. There's no 280E tax laws at a state level. So they allowed for a hybrid. They have adult use, they have medical, and they have caregivers. And so out of a 6 million population, there's $2.1 billion in revenue. So that tells you what the percentages of consumers are, which is really high. And if we look at the map and where like income is going, and say Massachusetts is in the top 3 highest income, top 3 highest IQ. There's MIT, Harvard, Tufts, 108 different academic schools in there. A lot of college kids and professors must be engaging. So the adult use market or the recreational market is so much bigger, so much bigger than anyone realizes, and especially in this state. So like he said, you know, there's 1 billion patients and there's 27 million people that live here and $92 billion a year in tourism. Like it's 20-fold what you guys think it's going to be. It's an enormous. This is the #1 market in the entire country. It's #3 right now with medical, and when it goes to full recreational, the whole world's changing for you guys and everyone else. So every state's had its shot. A lot of them have failed. A lot of them have failed. I feel like this state is very conservative. You have to look at different states and where they're going to go, but you know, Michigan, terrible state to be in because it's unlimited license. You can grow as much as you want outside. You can grow as much as you want indoor. You pay to play. That means the more money you got, the bigger you can go. But the cost of everything for the consumer is great. The cost of flour, cost of rosin, everything's going down, 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 down. That's actually not good for the industry either, because then all the makers, the growers, all the ancillary businesses, they'll also fail. So like the race to the bottom is also not the win. So looking for smaller states, I think Ohio's a sleeper, New Jersey's really good. Finding places that have the right laws on the books and have a semi-limited market would be like the states you would want to look in. But you're sitting in like one of the best states, even though it's the hardest and most restricted to get into.
Also, in Ohio, not only doctors can recommend, right? I think nurses can.
Yep.
It's different. So when other practitioners, other than doctors, can recommend.
Yeah, and there's a lot of
That's
like
really-
MSOs in these other kind of sleeper states. There's a reason why they're there. Just because you see them pull out of markets, though, doesn't necessarily mean whatever you're doing, you can't penetrate that market. So if you're on the craft side and you go up to the Northeast and you see Maine, and you're a craft person, you probably fit in really well there. You know, if you're a large company, you're not going to fit in very well. So it's like picking the states that like your business model could also fit to, whatever that might be.
Yeah, I'm a native Mainer, and I tried to bring Tikun to Maine a few years back, and exactly what you're saying. I mean, the Mainers are kind of territorial and small batch craft cannabis, and they thought that we were this big global behemoth coming in. The brand didn't perform there very well.
Yeah.
But you know, just to elaborate on some other points you made, Tony, I mean, one thing that I see this industry succumbing to a lot across the board, you know, not just with expansion into new state territories, but with many things, you know, be it hemp or the CBD craze in 2018, everyone's always focused on the next shiny object in this industry. And I was at Benzinga last week, and everybody was just talking about New Jersey and Ohio, Missouri, New York, and people have seemed to like forgotten about the states that were hot like a year or two ago. And the thing is, they haven't gone away. They're just maturing. And there's a lot of opportunities still in these really large markets. I mean, California is like one of the biggest cannabis markets in the world, and everyone's leaving. And so my point is that I still think that there's hidden opportunity in a lot of the things that aren't sexy today or that aren't getting a lot of the headlines, like Maine for some operators, or you know, California, or Mississippi. Just got to find your niche, and what's in the headlines always isn't the best opportunity.
I agree with that.
I'm glad you said Mississippi. Mississippi is a big one for me. Alabama, yeah, I think that, like you said, the shiny states, everybody wants to be in New York and Florida and big states like that, and the reality is a lot of the people who are making money in this industry are in places like Mississippi or Arkansas or places that are not that flashy. And so I'm glad you raised that state and that point.
Well, and then a lot of those states, they're not set up for lab testing, right? So they maybe have one lab or no labs. Right. And people don't really understand that you don't just pop up a lab. You know, you can't have been in the software or construction industry a year ago and then all of a sudden decide to open a lab. Yeah. So not that there's anything wrong with that, but it takes years, you know. So the instruments, some of those instruments are $500,000, you know. So you have to have multiple instruments to keep up with the volume, trained people to use them, to service them, set up the SOPs, get CLIA ISO accredited. So there's so many steps, and that should be happening in parallel. I don't think it is. You know, we do get approached all the time by people being like, oh, you're only in Florida, that's too bad. Have you thought about other states? And we're like, I mean, it's just a massive undertaking to open up a lab, and you can't get on the shelves if it's not tested. So.
And I actually get a lot of the same feedback. I mean, Tikun Olam used to be in a lot more states in the United States. And under my leadership in the last 2 years, we've actually reduced our footprint to just Florida, to just focus on this state, because we think it's an amazing opportunity with a lot more room to grow. So sometimes expansion is a bit unconventional. It actually looks like shrinking and refining your focus.
And so, Masha, I want to focus on what you said, because that's one of my red flags. Whenever I read into a state and see how is this going to shake out, lack of testing is a big no-no for me. So that's a big red flag, and I think that leads me into my last and final question for this subject is, when you guys are evaluating states, whether it be as an attorney, an investor, a CEO, an owner, whatever it is, what are some red flags for you in the launch of a state where after, you know, we've seen so many rollouts either fail, semi-succeed, or succeed? What is it at this point that we've just put together as a correlation, like this is a red flag? You know, as far as launching of programs, is there any for you that just kind of stand out? I mean, obviously one of the long-term kind of after the fact issues after the regs is government mismanagement, which you can't really predict how that's going to play. But is there anything in the black and white letter of the law or the statutes that you look at and it scares you or turns you off?
Yeah, I mean, for us, I mean, we like to draft like competitive applications. So a lot of these states have gone to like lotteries. So for our law firm, we generally like don't get too involved if it's just like a lottery state. So Kentucky, for example, they just had a lottery, and we got like dozens of calls from people that wanted to apply in Kentucky. But at the end of the day, like it just doesn't really make sense for us to do it. It's really just like filling out forms and submitting your name. Like they ask for business plan and some operational stuff as well. But ultimately, if we're taking on an application, we want to win. And when it's a lottery, you don't know if you're going to win. I mean, I think there were like thousands of retail applications submitted in Kentucky for, you know, a few dozen spots. So, you know, I think it all the way till the last day, there was all these news reports like, oh, not that many people are applying, not that many people are applying. And then on the last day, like thousands of applications went in. And then you have groups that literally come in and strategically stack the deck in the lottery, which we don't really like to do. I think there's some ethical issues there, but you have groups that will stack the deck in a lottery so that they have like 300 of those, you know, thousands of applications in there. They increase their odds. So I think there's a lot of games that get played with the lottery, so that's just one thing that we don't really get involved in. I wouldn't say, though, that it's a bad thing for a state. I think in some sense lotteries kind of make sense, but I kind of like merit-based rounds myself.
I know that's probably a dead question on a lot of points. Some people might not have feedback on that one.
I mean, like I said earlier, you know, it's policy. It's like, does a state have the right regulations? Does it have the will to bank? You know, I think like people don't understand that. California still has like 280 applied at the state level and the federal level. So if your business is taxed at 35%, you have no tax write-offs. And then the more you make, the more you get taxed. Like, that's why California is imploding. They don't have the right to write laws. So, and it has to do with like how are the tax laws written so that we can bank. They still don't have that figured out. So, and that's what scares investors. So all this money that you saw that goes into stock markets that were like registered foreign and here, at one point it had a great move, goes like this. Money gets like basically pulled out of the market when they realize that there's still no banking and there's still no laws. So I think there's like, right now, I'd say it's kind of, if you're not in the States, it's like time to like hunker into your state right now and allow some of this stuff to pan out, because the same thing that's happening in Florida is happening at the federal level. So right after the November election, which I feel is the domino effect. So Florida has to go, and then that's why Schedule 3 is delayed. So there's so much like pull when a large state then finally turns that over. So the yes is really going to actually push it further, and then hopefully Schedule 3 will pass. That's not what everybody wants, obviously. If you've been in this industry a long time, you want your God right freedoms, and one of those is being able to grow or possess this plant in any manner. But for us to get there, we have to take these steps. And so most of these markets are super volatile. Investors are at super high risk, and whatever, if you're established in pipelines and you're established in certain states, now's the time to just stay the course and wait it out, because the federal is going to be the same delay. You're going to have Florida, hopefully says yes. They say, okay, we're going to reschedule. Now it's the thumbs on the back of our neck, which has been that way my whole life. That's what it is. It's the government keeping their thumb on you. And so they want to keep their thumb there. It's all about 100% control. They want to control it so they can figure out how to tax it and how they can make money. That's all this is about. And for us, who we're passionate people in the industry, right? We want to help people, and we want to also create a new constitutional right for us. It's time. This is